Okay, we're going to do style and characteristics for realism, and we need to start off first with France. They had the Académie des Beaux-Arts. It was created to replace the disbanded Royal Academy of Painting and Sculpture, and it will exert a powerful influence over visual arts in France during the 19th century. Academic artists controlled the salon juries, and major public architectural commissions typically went to academic architects, painters, and sculptors. Artists from Europe and the United States will come to Paris to study the conventions of this academic art. Not everybody wanted to conform to this style of art, so that led to what we call the avant-garde. The avant-garde is a term coined by the French military during the Napoleonic era to designate the forward units of an advancing army that scouted territory that the main force would soon occupy. So people who call themselves avant-garde in regards to art is the reaction to the rigidity of academic training, and some French artists began to consider themselves members of the avant-garde, meaning advance guard or even vanguard. Avant-garde artists saw themselves as working in advance of an increasingly bourgeoisie society. This group broke away from the Académie des Beaux-Arts and the norms of society in order to forge new ideas, new thoughts, and different ways of looking at the world and art. So this is a direct challenge to the academy system, and this at times sacrificed artists' reputations, reduced the sales of their works, and made it harder for them to make a living. At first, the avant-garde first developed as a literary movement, which was basically like Charles Dickens, Honoré de Balzac, and Émile Zola. They're going to be writing about social and political issues at the time. So realism kind of originates from those novels of those writers and other writers who wrote about real lives of the urban lower classes. There's also a switch to this idea of less of a style than a commitment to paint the world honestly. That's something that's very different. They want to show like this is what the world actually is, not the perfection that you see in some of the academy paintings. And so that's kind of focusing more on everyday subjects. By denying the art, the exalted mission preached in the academies, realism was considered to be very revolutionary. To paint the world honestly, you had to be willing to face the brutal truths of life for all people, both the poor as well as the privileged. Technology is going to advance and allow for larger buildings. That comes with the not the creation of steel, but the mass production of steel through the Bessemer process, which I know a lot of people learned in U.S. history. If you are a junior or a senior, the way this worked is that by creating steel, it's infusing oxygen into the iron and a few other minerals that allows steel to be lighter, harder, and more malleable than iron. So by having steel, it made possible to create the skyscraper, railroad stations, large bridges, and monuments. And so similar to the Romanticism, the buildings were often made in a revival style. There's also new sources of patronage. Industrialists, merchants, professionals, even the middle class and governments and national academies of art are going to become sources of patronage. They're also going to have large annual exhibitions in Europe and America in their culture centers, and they're going to place increasing importance of artists to show their work. There's going to be prizes that they win, which will attract buyers and gain new commissions. And then one of the leading artists that is going to make these revolutionary changes is Gustave Courbet, and also Edouard Manet, which we'll talk about both of those artists in just a few minutes. Okay, so that is style and characteristics of realism.